Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 104 of Be With Me. We're in John chapter 5. We're going to ask this question, and the title today is, Who is the boss of the Sabbath and of everything else? And I went to church recently, and I learned something, that this actually has a spiritual name. It's called the regulative principle. That's essentially what we're going to talk about today, even though I didn't know its name until just very, very recently. The regulative principle. That is, who gets to be the boss? Who gets to regulate what I think about God? Is it me? Do I get to make a God of my own choosing? Versus, does he get to describe what he is like and what he wants? So we started in the story from John chapter 5, where we asked disturbingly, I think, yesterday, that there may be some people that don't want to be healed. And he checked, or we checked our eyes to see our readiness, and are we ready for the place of God's activity, and do we want it? So when Jesus asks the man at this pool, do you want to be healed? Verse 7 says, the sick man answered him, Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, and while I'm going down, another steps in before me. And in my eyes, he kind of like gives a yes and no question. He gives it a whole excuse. And here's what I don't like about this guy. So I'm regulating here. I don't like that he doesn't give a yes and no answer. I don't like that he doesn't have full and complete faith, that Jesus doesn't save full and completely, perfectly thinking, knowing Christians before they're Christians. In other words, here's how I bristle against this. I'm bristled against this, that Jesus saves this knucklehead. All right, so let's go on and let's talk about the Sabbath for a second, because God gets to regulate another thing here. Jesus says to him, get up, take your bed, and walk. And at once the man was healed. And he took up his bed and walked, which you'd think would be the main part of the story, but it's not. Not his healing is not the big part of the story. The big part of the story is, what time is it? And what day is it? And here it is. Now that day was the Sabbath. He drops us like a big bomb right in the middle of the passage. Verse 10, so the Jews said to the man who had been healed, it is the Sabbath, and it is not lawful for you to take up your bed. Now they say this with great confidence, but it's not. The amazing thing is it's not true. So here's the thing. Let's go back. The regulative principle means who gets to regulate what is true and what is not. So let's say you're not a big fan of hell. So you change your theology, and I know people do this, say there is no hell. Well, you don't get to decide that. There is or there isn't, and you're not the boss of that particular decision. Or let's say judgment, which is another way of saying there is no hell. I don't like being judged. I don't like that my behavior may have consequences. So I'm going to say that there is no judgment, like poof. Or for example, that the Lord has made certain sexual conduct for the protection and the covenant of within marriage. And if things happen outside of marriage, that's against God's rules. Well, I don't like that, so I'm going to disregard that. Or how we worship. Jesus got into that with the woman we talked about, the Samaritan woman at the well. Or that there may be certain things that I should or shouldn't do with my money. And here in the story, we get people that think they know what the Sabbath is about, and it is not true. How do we know it's not true? Well, God gets to decide. God is on station, literally standing there, defining, showing that love and compassion and healing can be part of the Sabbath. And you have people here who are so stuck in their rules, that their regulation rather than the Lord's regulation, that they say confidently to Jesus, right to his face, or at least to the man. Actually, it says to the man, it is not lawful. And essentially what they're saying is, I don't like God's rules. I don't like the Bible. I don't like that Jesus is bursting my perception of what someone should or shouldn't do on the Sabbath. And today, the same thing happens. Uh, there are ovens, if you don't know this, all over America and all over the world that turn on for an hour on the Sabbath because people can't figure out how to turn off their quote unquote Sabbath settings, because there's a group of people that believe that turning the knob of an oven to on a Sabbath violates the Sabbath. They're holding on to these rules that are just not true. So the essential question that they're asking is, who is Lord of the Sabbath? So I like the idea that they believe that there is a creator of the Sabbath. That's good. That the Sabbath is a special day. That's good. That it's the Lord's day. That's good. But how does the Lord want to be magnified on this particular day? We probably should look to Jesus as the source of that. They eventually ask, who is this man and who is the author of this rule and who is the boss of the Sabbath? So that's what we're getting to today. All right, so there's maybe all kinds of things that you don't like about the Bible. I think it's a great exercise to do, is find things you don't like about the Bible and kind of regulate them. Now that I'm putting this fancy theological word on this. So the regulations, who gets to decide? The regulative principle is who gets to decide. And if we start to decide, we have to discard things that Jesus said. We have to discard his primary revelation, which is his life, which is what these people are disregarding in the story. And then we have to quickly disregard his word, and we have to start making stuff up. So I think at the end of the story today, we probably should be quite humble. I could be wrong in this stuff, and making this God of my choosing. And let me just step back today and let you be Lord of the Sabbath, Lord of your morals, Lord of your requirements. So who is the boss of the Sabbath? The answer today is Jesus is the boss of the Sabbath. He made it, he invented it, and he gets to define it. And then we're going to expand this into another area tomorrow. But the big point today is he gets to regulate what happens on the Sabbath. Thanks for listening.